And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Joining us right now, Representative Becca Balint, a Democrat representing the entire state of Vermont. She was on the House Judiciary Committee and House Budget Committee, and she was kicking some Kristi Noem butt yesterday in House Judiciary. I'm not kidding. The clips went viral. Good to see you. And obviously the big news, Donald Trump had enough of Kristi Noem.
Yeah.
What's your reaction?
I'm not surprised. We certainly have heard that he has been dissatisfied with her for months now. But as you saw, she wasn't actually fired, right? She was reassigned to this new initiative that we're just hearing about. But yeah, it
Yeah, I don't think
is.
that's real.
No, it's not real. It's not real. They're all
The
trying to save
shield of
face.
the Americas.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
here's the thing. There are so many problems with her leadership, right? It's not just one thing, right? There's the line of questioning that I gave in terms of, all of the ways in which DHS has been lying to judges. There are the invasions of Americans' homes, violating the Fourth Amendment. There are certainly the deaths of three Americans now at the hands of ICE. There is misappropriation of funds as it relates to the luxury jets and her own personal crusade to, have commercials that show her in a variety of 10-gallon hats, riding on horses, protecting the homeland. There's the malfeasance related to the FEMA funds that are not being distributed because it turns out Corey Lewandowski has something to do with that. She may or may not be having an affair with. Like, there's so many things. And so it was a political liability for him. When you've got Republican senators and even a couple of House members not asking tough questions too much in the House, but really asking where are our FEMA funds, you got a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a really good line. You said to her, right to her face yesterday, that she will be held accountable for the terror she and her employees have unleashed on the American people. So
Yes.
even though she's fired, is she going to escape accountability, or you're still going to pursue it?
No, I think we need to pursue it. And I think we need to keep all the receipts from all of these people, whether it's Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, Pam Bondi. I mean, that's what Americans need to hear from us. It's not just that through the midterms and the next presidential that we will rid these people from public office, but we have to hold them accountable for their crimes. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about crimes of corruption, but we're also talking in the case of Renee Good, Alex Preddy, and others who lost their lives because you had Border Patrol and ICE Patrol agents under her direction violating people's human rights, their constitutional rights, and we do need to continue to hold them accountable. And so that was a really important point that I wanted to make,
Mm-hmm.
that just because you leave office doesn't mean all of this goes away. So you're responsible for what you do. You're not going to be able to say, well, he told me to do this.
It's and that was such a great point you made yesterday, and I'm glad that you're continuing that point today. It's the only way to change conduct in the future of this
Yes.
rogue officials today, to know
Yes.
that. And Trump might try to pardon them. He might pardon everybody. I don't know how it's
Yes.
going to go, but if there's state crimes,
That's
and
right.
maybe some of these pardons could be challenged. I keep looking for ways. So now
Yes.
Mark Wayne Mullen will be the new head of DHS. I was doing research. He ran his family's plumbing business and was elected to Congress. Nothing wrong with the plumbing business, but I
Nope.
don't know how. And then a steakhouse. He had a steak company as well.
Okay.
And what I don't see is military service or anything at all
Oh,
to deal with the idea of keeping us safe. So I'm
yeah.
kind of at a loss for why this guy was.
Yeah. Oh, he's a shill for the administration. I mean, if you,
That's
or I mean, like that's where we got. And he was trotted out in front of the cameras since our attack on Iran last weekend. He was everywhere saying, "This isn't a war. This isn't a war." And unfortunately for him, the split screen was people in the administration saying we're at war. And so, and even when called directly on this, he would continue to double down and say, no, it's a military action. And that they're what did he say at one point? They're misspoken. They're misspoken. It's like, no, sir. And so he's a shill, and we'll see how long he lasts.
Well, I did just see the best clip ever right before you came on, where he used the term war And they go, you just call it Manu Raja goes, you just called it a war. He goes, no, I didn't call it. He goes, and the other reporter's like, you just said the word war. And it's like, it's like
He's
the
like, I didn't
gotcha
say
word.
that. I'm a ventriloquist. Or like, what are
Right,
you
right.
talking about?
I mean, what can you, he goes, well, I may have misspoke, but it's not a war. What is it? We have two battle groups. We have troops in harm's way all over the entire region.
Yes,
If this isn't a war, there's no such thing as war. I mean,
exactly.
there's no
And
war anymore.
tell that to the Vermont families right now whose children are in F-35s, in the Gulf region. Like, you're telling them that their children have been deployed, put in harm's way. We already have had troops who have been killed. To say that it's not a war, it's outrageous. It's contemptible.
So let's get your react. Let's talk about the Iran war. I mean, we woke up Saturday morning. What a jarring thing.
Yes.
I'm like, we're at war. This
Yes.
without any, not even making the case. The State of the
That's right.
Union was days before. He didn't have the decency to even try to make the case to the American public. It feels like we don't deserve it. He views us as subjects.
Yes.
We're not voted. We're not constituents. He'll
A-
just do whatever he wants.
Absolutely, Dean. And that is exactly spot on. And that was continued. I can't tell you the details of the classified briefing, but that was the tone of the classified briefing as well, which is what we got after the Venezuela attack, which is essentially we can do this, we will do this, and we don't actually owe you any answers. Even the basic question of why,
Right.
why, why now? What's the imminent threat? And it is absolutely true that the way that they show up is this sense that nothing can stop them. They get to decide that there's no check on the system. There's no such thing as three branches anymore. The executive has all the power. And the most disgusting part, and you saw it in the State of the Union, we saw it in the classified briefing, the Republicans just clap like sycophants and they cheer this on as if it's a game. And it's not a game. It is not just like it's certainly the lives of Americans, right? There's
Right.
the actual lives of Americans. It is the livelihood of Americans. It's our economy. And it's also the thousands and thousands of Iranians who have lost their lives even in the last few weeks from the brutal crackdown. And no plans seem to be in place in terms of how we are going to support them. Like this sense of like, well, we dropped some bombs, now rise up against your oppressor. Like we've played this movie before, Dean.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And this guy ran for president against all the neocons. Turns out, jokes on all of his base, he's the biggest neocon. That he can do regime change wherever and whenever he wants. And he will spend our money to do it, and he will put lives in danger, and we don't get to have those answers. Yeah, they didn't feel like they needed to make a case before the American people
No.
or before Congress,
He gave
right?
a 2 hour speech. The State of the Union was the longest 2 hours of our lives, and he spent a few minutes on this. I just had a retired U.S. Army major who actually he quit. I mean, during the Gaza war in protest. This guy
Protest.
Harrison Mann, and he was a really good guy. And he talked about, we talked about the fact that the reporting is that the Kurds, maybe there's a few thousand, maybe there's 10,000, maybe there's 50,000. We don't know, but it's a country of 90 million. So they
Yes.
had a pretty big military. In the Iraq War, we had a coalition of 250,000 troops
Yeah.
that went into a country of 25 million, plus everything else around. So you have a few thousand people on
Yes.
horseback, on cars, like they're going to be sent to their death. It's a suicide mission.
Yes, it is. It is. And your point is a good one. Although I did not agree at all with the war in Iraq, I knew the case that was being made was not a strong one about weapons of mass destruction. But there was a coalition of the willing, right? There
Right.
was a case made to other countries to join us in coalition. And obviously, we have alienated all of our allies. We have alienated so many people around the globe who would, in the past, feel like they could trust American intelligence gathering, that they could trust the recommendations coming from within the U.S. government, and that's just not the case right now. And that has been 90 years of building up these relationships to be torn down, in a year's time. And it is, I think what you said is absolutely right. It is a suicide mission for those people in Iran, and they deserve so much more than that, given the horrible brutality they've lived under for so long. And we haven't even talked about the fact that they seem to have no plan for getting Americans out of the region, right? And that was the other thing, is like at top level, I can't ask you the specific questions or the answers that were given, but that came up in the classified briefing. Like, tell us the plan. And it was like they were surprised. And we kept getting this very low figure of people in the region. And, when you count up all of the businesses in the region, because now even sites in Azerbaijan, I think I saw today were being hit, right? So like the region that we're talking about keeps getting expanded by the hour, and that there wasn't any forethought put into how this could so quickly spiral out of control, and that a lot of Americans would be in harm's way.
Yeah.
It's shocking.
I agree. I'm trying to represent Becca Balint. Well, I had Joseph Sione on the show we did a special thing Saturday. Joseph Sione advised various presidents over the years. And within hours, he goes, he just gamed down. He said, Iran will try to expand the conflict to put pressure economically on the U.S. This is exactly what they did. How did they not know? How did this administration not know? That's like, I didn't know that's what they would do. But
Right.
everything he predicted within hours of the actual thing, he goes, this is what's going to happen. This is how it plays out, because they understand domestic political concerns. They understand by stopping oil, by causing economic slowdowns, it puts pressure on the U.S. administration and regime. So you've got this, and now we have no idea. We have Pete Hicks yesterday saying this might be 8 weeks. It goes 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks before you know it's an 8-year war. Like,
well, I just saw something before I got on with you, that there's chatter inside CENTCOM that this could be through September.
Oh, it'll go through the midterms. The midterms is the only thing that are going to stop this. And then there's pressure on members, even Democrats. Do you pull the plug on the militaries out in the field? And that's really hard. I mean,
it is.
You have to have a wind down that is responsible.
Yes.
Which is
hard.
It's
a mess. It's an absolute mess. And, I really, I have become more snarky than I've ever been. I'm not a snarky person. I'm really not. I'm not sarcastic, but this week I just feel like it is a bunch of cosplaying buffoons who are leading the charge here. That they like, when you look at Hegseth, like all he ever wanted to do was just like, stand up and be a manly man and boss people around. And, and he is a caricature at this point. And I get very concerned for our safety in this country when we have these people in charge. Very concerned, Dean.
I share that concern. I mean, I know you can't really reveal anything from classified briefings, but a lot of the questions we have is, how was this in the U.S.'s interest in terms of protecting our homeland? Like, we're sort of missing that.
Yes. And I will just say, nothing that I heard gave me any indication that this was an imminent threat to not just America, but to our interests. There was not any evidence provided to us about that. And that should always be the measurement by which we decide if we're going to send our troops into harm's way. And so it's very disturbing that the lawlessness for the last year, and the defiance of court orders, and the posturing of this presidency in terms of taking congressional powers and not having Republicans push back against that, right, to the extent that they feel like they can get away with anything. So they didn't even have to make the case to Americans. They felt like they didn't have to make the case to the world They don't have to make the case to us around appropriations that the Republicans have created this monster. They have created. And at this point, I don't know what it's going to take for them to understand that when they sort of wring their hands and say, "Oh, well, we don't have a congressional authority." Well, you gave it away. You gave it away. You opened the store. You gave away the store. So,
Well, I was just on the show 2 days ago going through the 2006 midterm, 20 years ago, and what happened then. Similar unpopular president, unpopular war. Democrats win the House for the first time in 12 years and flip the Senate. No one thought they were going to win the Senate.
that's
And
right.
then, so that's the hope. And that was like astounding to
Yes.
Bush and to them. And I think we're on that way.
That's right. He said, I forgot. He said, "We got a thumping."
Yeah, something like that. That's right.
No,
So
we got a
we
thumping.
got
Yeah.
something. Yeah, yes. I used to do jokes about Bush so much in my life. When in my prior life, when I just told jokes, he
Yeah.
would pay me. I didn't have to think about the world like this. What? So now Trump's Scott Bessent, and I assume it might be today. I don't know. He said this
Yeah.
week the 15% tariffs are going to effect.
Yes.
That's all I
Okay.
know. I don't know this. I don't know what day this week the new tariffs.
But
But you add that with
also,
the gas prices.
right, you're going to declare war in the same oh, okay, not declare war. You're going to have this, military exercise that sure as hell looks like a war. At the
Right.
same time, so you're going to create all this economic instability, and then you're going to put a 15, percent tariff on everything. Consumers are already struggling right now. It's just, again, buffoons, cosplaying buffoons.
Yeah, because I was asking her how in Vermont. I mean, they must have been happy when the tariffs were struck down.
Yeah.
Now Trump imposes
Yes.
15%, 10 to mostly 15%. I don't even know where, that it
Yeah.
only can last for a handful of months.
Yeah.
That's going to end. But now you have gas prices up. AAA just looked this morning, up 35 cents on average from just a short time ago. And just so you know, Brent crude on the open market is just moving up today. It's really
Yes.
moving up. So it's going to be even higher as this continues. Stock market's down over 1,000. I mean, that's ephemeral. That
Right.
happens really quickly one way. But we're going to see higher gas prices. Your constituents
Well,
are going to see higher
we're
gas
not
prices.
just gonna, I mean, we're not just gonna see higher gas prices. We're gonna see higher food prices too, right? Because
Yeah,
all of these goods need to
everything.
be
Yeah,
shipped, right? And so when I'm eating my California almonds, right? We're not growing almonds in Vermont, fill in the blank. It is going to impact groceries, and we did feel a sense of relief when the tariffs were, voted down by the Supreme Court. Of course, the Supreme Court did not offer a remedy, right? Kicked that can.
right.
You've got so many small businesses in Vermont who want their damn money back, right? They
Yeah,
have paid through the nose to try to get their products on the shelf. Then, of course, many of those companies that couldn't eat that passed it along to consumers. So that money, right? And
mhm.
Bessent was on a show the other day when he was being asked about this. He's like, "Oh no, nobody's going to see that money." Like, we took that money and that's our money, already been spent, essentially. It's like, no, it's not your money. Actually, it was illegal. The tariffs were
Yeah.
illegal. You stole our money, right?
Yep.
And I know that so many small businesses in Vermont are so angry about the tariffs themselves, but also about the fact that they can't plan. There's so much instability. And when you run a business, you got to be able to do some long range and short range planning. And you can't when you have an administration that could decide from one day to the next that,
Yep.
they're slapping a new tariff on, or they're making an exception for something, or, and of course, now with the war in the Middle East, that is another, certainly, economically, I think is going to be, not just create more instability and unpredictability. I think it can be really devastating for small businesses who are already on the margin, and they're not going to be able to pay those higher fuel prices, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and last thing, I mean, it seems the case for Democrats to get the House and the Senate is getting even more intensely obvious for people because you need a full oversight. There's no oversight in this administration. It's a lawless administration. So if Democrats get the House, I mean, will the oversight be like your top priority? Because you can't get legislation. Maybe you can try to get
Well,
legislation.
yeah, right. I mean, it
Oversight,
all
there you go.
depends on what happens in the Senate, right? I think two things. We have to walk and chew gum at the same time. We
Right.
we have to have accountability because if these folks are not held accountable, then that's the precedent set going forward, right? The next corrupt, lawless person in the executive office now has a complete plan to follow in order to enrich him or herself, right? So that has to happen, and we have to have a proactive agenda that we're ready to move on day one. And when I think about where I sit, I want to see huge investments at the federal level in housing. I want to see real teeth put into dismantling some of these monopolies that not just continue to drive up prices, but lower wages for people and reduce our ability to vote with our feet and our dollars. And so that is a place where a number of us in the caucus have really been pushing for a proactive agenda to come out sooner rather than later, because we're all just gonna, we have to make the case. That has to be part of the midterms. It just can't be running against this lawlessness. People want to have some hope for the future that we're going to make some positive change that are it's going to materially impact their lives,
Absolutely. And that was one of the biggest lessons I got from the mayor's race here in New York with Zoran. It wasn't just like he was charismatic and a good speaker. He had specific policy proposals and prescriptions that he was articulating. And I think Democrats have learned it. I interviewed Governor Kathy Hochul's up for re-election 2 days ago, and she had very specific things as well.
Yes.
So that's lesson for Democrats. Be specific, because then it gives you credibility. Like, oh, this
absolutely. And I understand the concern of, well, we don't want to put out an affirmative agenda and then underdeliver, right? I get that, right? That is the problem with politics. You have to be able to turn that into actual wins. But that should not be the thing that paralyzes us from making a very positive, proactive, vision, honestly, not just a couple talking points, a vision for where we want this country to be. And I actually think that, I know we don't really have time to get into the whole Tallarico win in Texas.
Yeah.
But I thought was really interesting. I was looking at where he won versus where Jasmine Crockett was able to win. And just, I'm going to be curious watching as that moves into the general, how he talks about these issues around delivering for Americans, because he's also talking about taking on the billionaire class, but he's doing it in language that's very different from a Bernie Sanders or different from an AOC, but it's effective in Texas. So I'm curious. I'm going to be watching that closely.
That's great. Well, Representative Balint, I want to thank you for taking some time. I know it's in between a lot of things going on the Hill, but thank you for getting rid of Kristi Noem. You did a great job.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
At the hearing, and I look forward to chatting with you in the future.
Thanks, Dean.